John, just FYI, I'm here now too, brother.
Woohoo!
Woohoo! Good stuff. Thanks. Thanks, Renee. Um,
No
all
problem.
right. So let's and I guess Renee, I'll ask you because I don't want to spend too much time on things that we don't need to spend time on. Um, do you know if everybody is set up on login.gov? Should we go through that?
No, I had everybody sign in on login.gov, and I have all their permissions within SafeSpect and in the groups and stuff. So they're
Okay.
all ready to go.
Awesome. That's great. And then the one other question I will ask, if you would like our help with this, we can. Jamie has a good little demo on how to create a an icon on their desktop, a shortcut on their desktop. Would you like us to go through that, or we can just skip right um, the
I
actual
I
training?
sent something. I actually sent something out yesterday, but it doesn't hurt to do it now since there'll be other users and just get it on recording real quick. That way, it's one less thing.
All right.
Absolutely. Jamie, over to you. Oh, actually, we
Thank
do
you.
have a question.
Yeah.
Let's see here. I saw somebody's hand up.
Yeah.
Matthew
Renee.
Clairday.
Uh, I was wondering, for the offline use, is there a separate app that needs to be installed for in order to use that offline?
No, actually, there isn't. Once you log into SafeSpect online for the first time, it's cached in your browser, and then even if you're offline, you can still get in and enter the information.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Good question.
It's magical.
Yeah, I think so because I'm not big on technology, but Jamie, I'll turn it over to you.
All right. This one in here. Okay. So, how you create a shortcut on the desktop. In the onboarding package we sent through Renee, uh, we did include the icon that we use for SafeSpec. You don't necessarily have to use that. You don't necessarily have to create a shortcut, but it does come in handy because if you're going to be using this quite a bit, it's a lot easier than drilling down through your list of bookmarks and trying to find it. So, how do you create the shortcut? Presuming everyone is using a Windows computer, I think they are, then it works like this. You find a clear space on your computer's desktop, you right click the mouse, and it brings up a context menu. If you're left handed, you would left click the mouse. If you set your mouse up there. Everyone's context menu will look a little different, but I guarantee you somewhere near the bottom it will say new. You click on new, another context menu pops up, and again, everyone's will look the same. will look different. Woo! It's only Tuesday. No, it's Wednesday. Okay. Uh, Somewhere near the top of this context menu will be shortcut. So you right click, choose new, and then shortcut. When you do that, this little form will appear on your screen. It says, what do you want to create a shortcut for? And do not click browse. You'll get angry, you'll get upset, you'll get frustrated, you'll go home, you'll kick your dog. We don't want any dogs kicked. Don't do that. So instead, I want you to type in this URL, https colon slash slash safespect, yes, there is a T on the end, dot fmcsa dot dot gov. So after you do that, it will look like this. Again, don't hit browse. Instead, click the next button. After you click next, it'll say, what do you want to name the shortcut? Well, you can name it anything you want, depending on your mood, of course. We recommend you type FMCSA SafeSpect. Then you click the finish button. Depending on what your default browser is, uh, if it's Chrome, your icon will look like this. If it's Edge, your icon will look like this. If it's Mozilla Firefox, it will look like this. If you happen to be using a iPad or your iPhone, then you'll have a Safari shortcut on your desktop. Now, that's the long way to do it. There is an alternate method that's a little short. You can open your browser and go ahead and load up the SafeSpect landing page. Yeah, mute yourself. Mute yourself. Okay, thank you. After the page loads, kind of scoot your browser down the page, and on the address bar of your browser, there will be this padlock looking thing. Please mute yourself.
Yeah, please mute yourself if there's more than.
I muted him.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay. So on your browser, there will be this little padlock looking thing here. You can click on that, hold your mouse button down, and just drag that over onto your desktop, and it will create the shortcut for you. The only difference will be that instead of saying FMCSA SafeSpect, it will say FMCSA Inspection Platform, which is what the working name was before we came up with the clever name SafeSpect. So you can leave it like that, or if you wish, you can choose rename and rename it to FMCSA SafeSpect. So now that I've done that, I'll give you a demonstration of how that actually looks. So here I've got my bare desktop. I'm going to right click, and down near the bottom of my context menu, it says new. I click on that, and the subcontext menu comes up, and up near the top, it says shortcut. I'm not going to hit browse. I don't want to kick any dogs. Instead, I'll type in https safespect.fmcsa.dot.gov, and I click next, and it says, what do you want to call it? I'm going to call it FMCSA SafeSpect. And I click finish, and there's my new icon. Sometimes your computer might get a mind of its own, and it will put the icon over in here, or if you got multiple monitors, it might show up somewhere else. But and today I got lucky. Okay, so the other way I mentioned is by dragging it from your desktop over. I'm going to demonstrate this using the Firefox browser because it does something a little different. If I type in, just cheat here instead of watching me type. So I get to the SafeSpect landing page, and here in the address bar is this padlock. I click on it and I drag it over, and it created the shortcut for me. You notice it went ahead and used the DOT, US DOT logo. Firefox is the only one that does that. Edge and Chrome, they just bring over their own icon. We did provide the icon in the onboarding packet, and if it was provided to you, you save it somewhere on your desktop, and then you can change this icon by right-clicking on the icon, just one time right-click, choose Properties, and then there's a button here that says Change Icon, and then you browse to where you saved that. It's over here under temp installs right here. And I click, it's called SafeSpect.ico. I click that. It shows up. I click OK, and then I click Apply, and I click OK. And now I've created the shortcut. And you see it looks just like the one we use, except we worded it different. Any questions? Okay. Something I'd like to cover real quick that's we don't actually address in John's presentation, and it's something you need to be aware of how SafeSpect works. So currently today, if you're using Aspen, you're at the roadside and you've got your laptop open, and at some point you put the data in there. Hopefully you're following through start to finish on there. You do your data collection. When you get done, you click upload or transfer, I think it's called, and it goes through Safer Web Services and it hits the Safer server. At that point, it's split. Part of the data goes into the past inspection database, and then part of it is migrated down to SafetyNet. Someone imports it into SafetyNet, does their validation, quality control on it. They click another button, and it gets made into a file, which is uploaded to MICMAS, gets loaded into MICMAS the next day. That's how things are working if you're using Aspen today. Now, what the current status of SafeSpect is, if you're still on Aspen or a third-party system, that part's still the same with the addition of this migration service in here. Those third-party systems, they're still loading things over to this way, but we're also migrating that data into the SafeSpect database. It's there. SafeSpect, on the other hand, if you're using SafeSpect, from the time you start your inspection through the life of that inspection, it exists in SafeSpect. There is no upload, there is no transfer, no chance of data loss, or little chance of data loss. It's all done right here. When it's in draft state, it hasn't been completely saved to the database, but as soon as you start that inspection, it's in draft state, it's here, it's in the database. Only you can see it. After you submit it, it's available for all nationwide enforcement personnel to see immediately, right then. And we do that through not only being able to do past inspection queries in SafeSpect itself, but we also push a copy through the migration service back to Safer. So it's there. Someone not using SafeSpect can do a past inspection query and find that submitted inspection. Once the inspection's been marked published, approved and published, then it will also go into our data lake. It will reside there in infamy. And then it's also pushed through our migration service up to MICMAS for our legacy systems that haven't been updated yet. So that's the big change that you'll be working with. You don't have to worry about when it uploads and when it downloads. If you're working offline, SafeSpect will recognize when it has a good connection, and it will migrate this data in the back end. So in the future, SafetyNet and Safer will be taken out of the picture. MICMAS will be taken out of the picture, and everything will be within SafeSpect. So, bored you with that? Back to you, John.
Great, thanks, Jamie. All right, with that, I will pass it over to John Smoot, who will walk us through an inspection from start to finish.
Great. Thanks, John. Appreciate that. Apologize for late being here. I had to run from another meeting and then get to a location where I could do this because our FMCSA office has flooded and we can't work in it right now. So I've been running between places this morning. But anyway, with that being said, John Smoot, I am State Program Specialist in Kentucky. Prior to that, I worked for the Kentucky State Police for 18 years. And prior to that, I worked for the Lexington Division of Police for 21 years, where I started doing commercial vehicle stuff as part of my reconstruction duties way back when. So, as you can tell, I'm gray-headed and old, as Jamie would like to say. Jamie would also say I'm short, but I'm not. So, anyway, with that being said, I'm going to share my screen, and you should now see SafeSpect.
Yes.
we are basically going to walk through, as John said, an entire inspection. I'm going to pick and choose where I spend my time. I'm not going to bore you with things that are not nuances and inspection stuff that obviously you know. But we're going to try to mostly focus on the nuances and how to navigate you through the inspection. First thing I'll mention, John then probably gave you a URL that was a little bit different than the one I have. This one you'll see it's got a STG uh, extension on it. This is actually a training. It's actually a testing environment that we use as part of the development phase when things are created and developed and then sent to testing that we do before we push it to production. So we're using a testing environment. So you may see a few things today that actually are not in production yet. But the other thing is really caveat is that we're not, even though we're online and we're hitting directly into the repository, like Jamie said, we're not going to hit live systems such as SIDless. A couple reasons for that. One is obviously PII, but we're going to hit a test SIDless database so you can see what happens because we're going to run SIDless in the background for you now. Secondly, we're not going to hit the actual production database for motor carriers, which you will be hitting when you do production inspections, but we'll talk more about that as we go through here. So everything else is just exactly like it should be in the production version, except this is a little bit slower at times because of the production environment uh, is actual live data, and this is testing environment, which doesn't have the same resources associated with it because it doesn't have as many people hitting it. Although there's a lot of production people hitting it every day. First thing you'll notice, actually, I'm going to log out, I think. So let's just log out. And I know they mentioned login.gov. And I heard Renee say that she's already discussed login.gov. Hello, Renee, by the way. Uh, we will use login.gov. And as we do that, uh, I'm going to actually use our government card to log in, but you can utilize your email address and password as you do for login.gov. If you've been doing NTC training, you've got that anyway. But it does make it easier. You don't have to remember a bunch of different passwords and such. It does have second party authentication, which is a good thing as you're living in an online world and we want security. So the first thing you'll notice when I get to the main screen here is you'll see that I have several different roles. The software is role based, and that's going to allow a lot of state agencies to modify things the way they want them. First thing you'll see here is this agency admin role, and I clicked on it, and you'll see it tells me up here that I am now logged in as an agency admin. I'm going to go back to switch roles. Every agency will have an agency admin, and that agency admin is responsible for a bunch of things, including setting up the software in some instances that I'll talk about as we go through here that customizes it for your agency. Then there's an approver role. Right now, every inspection is being approved by somebody in your organization, and there is some auto published functionality that was just released. We can talk about that in a little bit. There's a data queue analyst role if you're one of those folks that does a data queue analyst role in your agency so that you can do those and adjudicate those things. I've also got a division administrator role. And lastly, the role we're going to spend most of our time on today is the inspector role. So we'll click on that and we'll go up here and we'll see it tells me I am now logged in my inspector role, which is where we do inspections. I'm sure John mentioned that when you're online, you always have the newest version because it's online. If we was to happen to push IT was to push some updates while you were working, that's okay. You would simply get a message, hey, there's some updates been pushed. Go ahead and complete whatever you want to do. And then when you log out, log back in, those new updates will be associated with your online version. So there's no touching every computer, Renee, like you used to have to do when Aspen was pushed a new release. I can remember those days when I was with the state, and the city where we would have to touch every computer. You don't have to do that anymore. To the right of that is a little icon that tells you I have online connectivity. The software will work offline, as I heard Jamie talking about. There's two times that you really need to have online connectivity. The first time you log on, you need to have an internet connection of some sort, and the reason being is it's going to download some things into your browser that is going to allow the offline work. And one of those things that it will download is a truncated version of the motor carrier database. And we'll talk more about that in a little bit. The second time that you need to have online connectivity is to actually have the software publish your inspections for you. As Jamie had mentioned, as soon as you hit submit, that inspection becomes available for everybody for PIQ purposes, for previous inspection query purposes. Obviously, if you're offline, it can't actually submit it. So what happens is when you complete an inspection offline and you hit submit, it puts the inspection in a queue. And when you come back and have internet connectivity with the software open, it's going to recognize that and it's going to automatically go ahead and publish those inspections, submit those inspections for you without you having to do anything. And then they will be available for previous inspection query purposes. So you can do everything you can do offline to complete the inspection. You actually even do hit the submit button, but it lays there in the background waiting for you to have internet connectivity, and then it will submit it for you. One of the things we are telling people right now is if you do go offline, do not clear your browser's cache before you submit those inspections. We've seen a couple of issues where if you've done that, it might be an issue. So don't clear your browser's cache as a routine uh, when you close your browser unexpectedly. To the right of that is the opportunity to switch to dark mode, and you'll see a lot of the cursors have identifying verbiage with them. If I put my cursor on it and let it sit there, and this just gives you the opportunity to change it to the dark mode if you like. A lot of people leave it in this mode all the time now, I've noticed. Um, Great for if you're working at night to keep from lighting up the inside of your cruiser. But you as an inspector can actually set this as a default if you want. And I'll show you in a little bit where you can set that default because there are things that you as an inspector can modify the software to your liking as well. I mentioned that the agency admin can modify the software for your desires, but you as an inspector can also do some of those things yourself. To the right of that, it's just a notification icon for when we send notifications. To the right of that is this little help icon. And basically what this is it's hyperlinks to sites based on we want everything in one place for you so that you can go to these sites without having to type in a URL, without having to drop down, open up a new browser, without even having to create a new tab of your own. You can just automatically go to these links, and then when you close it, you'll see that you're right back to the software because you never left it. Now, these links are actually put in by your administrator again, something that your administrator does for you. You can let them know if there's sites that you visit on frequent occasions. One of the things I think that might be specific to a state is if you're doing size and weight enforcement and you're looking for size and weight permits like we have to do in Kentucky, or ID used to do in Kentucky, and you want to access your Kentucky Transportation Cabinet website on size and weight permits to see if it is in existence or not. So your admin could create that link for you so that you could just very easily go without having to again type in the URL or minimize anything. And when you're done doing what you want to do, you close it and you're right back there. So that's just another tool that's available that your agency can set up however you need it. To the right of that is the thing you've already seen where we can switch roles. Obviously, logout is a no-brainer, but the settings button is where you can do some things that you might want to do. For example, favorite locations. You can see here that I've created like 6 different locations. You can click on add roadside favorite location. It gives you a note telling you to not add a permanent fixed facility like a scale facility. Your administrator will do that. And actually, Jamie's probably already done that for you initially, but your administrator can add or modify. If you want to select a location from your fixed location, you can select it from there, and you'll see all these locations that Jamie entered for me just a little while back. And these are all the Kentucky facilities with the location code and such. So if I wanted to select one of these locations, and there's the information about it, I could just simply click on this plus button, and now it's going to set that location as my favorite location. Um, I can also add locations, like I said. Um, I can set default locations, and you'll see here that I have Canada, Whistler, Blackcomb County selected as my favorite location. I'm going to leave it to that for now, but if I wanted to change it, I could, and I could select from my list of locations. So you can create these as an inspector. Maybe you're going to be doing inspections at a specific area all day one day, but maybe it's a complaint or whatever, and you don't want to have to change your location. You can just go ahead and set it to default. And when we get to that screen, I'll show you what I mean, how it just automatically sets it for you. You can remove it, you can get the information about it, so on and so forth. Next to that is some other preferences that you can set. I mentioned the display theme, whether you want it light or dark. The default inspection statuses, I'll show you where this comes into play later. But there's basically 4 statuses of inspections. There's approved, there's draft, rejected, and submitted. And they're pretty much self-explanatory. The draft is one that you're working on that you've not submitted yet. The rejected is one that has been submitted, and somebody that is doing your approval function sent it back to you for whatever reason. But I'll show you the inspection list later on, and you'll see what I mean. This just sets the default so that when you open that inspection list, it's going to default to those 3 things. If I go ahead and add submitted, then you'll see now I've got 4 of those. Then the last one for your inspection purposes right now is if you want to set a default for how your violations display on your inspection, the sort order, for lack of a better word, then you can decide how you want them sorted. I know a lot of people are kind of crazy about having their inspections look exactly the same all the time. Been there, done that. But you can click on save, and it'll save those things that we just did. Down the road, there will be more, and it tells me it's updated. Down the road, there will be more things that you, as an inspector, a user, can modify yourself if you want. I'm going to go back to the home screen, and we'll walk through a few more things here. On the left side is a basic Windows type menu. You can see you can minimize it if you want. Um, there's a home screen, which is where we're at right now. I'll come back to that in a minute. There's 3 things here you'll see that are deactivated or not active yet. There's carriers, drivers, and vehicles. These are going to be pre-screening opportunities. So that if you wanted to pre-screen a carrier and not maybe do an inspection on them, you just pre-screening them and then decide whether you want to do an inspection or not, then you can do that. Secondly, you're also going to be able to do that with drivers. Maybe you stop a CMV for running a red light or something, whatever it is, and you don't think you're going to do a inspection on it because the carrier has a low SMS or whatever. But then you get the driver out and you start writing a citation for running a red light, and you run him through SIDless, and he comes back with prohibited status. So now you're obviously going to do an inspection. So you can go ahead and do an inspection from that screen because you did the pre-screen. Same thing with vehicles. You can do pre-screening on those as well. This is that inspection list that I talked about, and you'll see that there's those 4 defaults that I set it to default to all 4 statuses. This is my work. This is everything that I've done. This is not anybody else's. These are just things that I've done. So I can search for them automatically by setting that preference. You'll see there's rejected, drafts, and approved. This little icon right here, and you can see it says approve or publish. That means that somebody physically approved this inspection, i.e. me, because I was done it myself. You'll see there's draft inspections. Next to the approved inspection is an icon For sake of time, I'm not going to open it right now. I'll show it to you later. But that just basically means the inspection's been approved. As an inspector, all you can do right now is look at it, open it up in paper view, print it, whatever you need to do with it. The ones that are in draft have the pencil so that I can edit those if I want to edit them. Same thing with rejected. It's been submitted so I can actually open it up. It's rejected and sent back to me so I can open it up and edit it. If an inspection is approved and you find that it needs to be modified, there's multiple ways to do that. First off, as an inspector, if you decided you needed to modify an inspection that had been approved, there's a couple things you could do. One, you could email your supervisor or whoever your approver is and say, "Hey, I need you to send that and report back to me." Even though it's been approved, that administrator or that approver can go ahead and send it back to you. And when he does that, you'll be able to edit it. The other thing that can be done is your approver or your administrator can always edit an inspection, and a data queue analyst can always edit an inspection. But those are just inspections. Again, this is my list that is here. I can also utilize this filter, and this is fairly new. We increased the filter a couple of weeks ago. There's multiple ways that you can search for an inspection. For example, license plate, ABC123CDL. I'm going to put United States, and if I recall correctly, I've got one that's got that license plate in it, and when it searches for it, it's going to bring those up. So I've got all these inspections that actually have ABCCDL in them. So this filter just gives you an opportunity to search for inspections. Maybe a data queue analyst sends you a question about an inspection and he sends you the inspection number. So you can search for the inspection number. And you can actually search using the prefix as long as you put in at least 5 digits. And I'll put in those 5 digits there. You'll see it allows it, the red mark went away. And now I can hit apply and it's going to search for those inspections. So again, just an opportunity to search multiple ways for inspections as you go through here. That's fairly new. It's pretty handy looking for inspections. There may be a few other things that we add down the road, but these are the most often requested ones that we've seen so far. Down from that, and again, just let me reiterate, this is your inspection. These are the things that you do. We'll talk about previous inspection queries for everybody here in a little bit. Down to the reports tab, there's actually 2 reports that we've created automatically for you. The first one being one that you're used to seeing, the inspection summary report. I like to call it the old Aspen report. We created it first because I know a lot of agencies use this on a routine basis to maybe have their officers, inspectors send it to them on a routine basis, whether it be a week, month, quarter, whatever it is. But it gives an inspection report for me, the date period that I put in there as a range, and then all the inspection stuff that I have done for that time period, which in this instance is 0. The other report that is available that is something most of you have never seen before, this is the report that your safety net operators, Renee, used to run quite frequently when inspection would come in, and this is a data quality report. This doesn't mean that there are issues, but this means that there are things that you might want to look at and review. You can see there's things such as inspection completeness, driver vehicle, VIN accuracy, timeliness, so on and so forth, suspicious DOT numbers, date range, and there's and driver completeness. And again, it gives me things that I might need to look at. Again, it doesn't say that they're wrong per se, but the software is flagged it as being a possible issue for to look at. Vehicle completeness, VIN accuracy. Um, we'll talk about VINs here in a little bit, but this just gives you things that maybe you should look at. And obviously it's going to be blank because I've done 0 inspections for the time period that I made it. So let's go back up here and let's back this up. And now you'll see that there are a bunch of populated items that I might want to look at. And you'll notice most specifically down here, the VIN one And I'll talk about why those are appearing here in a little bit, because we've added functionality to allow you to check, allow you to add VINs that might not pass VIN check. But we'll talk about that in a little bit. Jamie, you built this. Would you like to say anything about the data quality report before I move on? Or actually see if there's any questions. Renee may have a question or two herself.
Let's see. I think you covered most all of it. We did do an initial release of this, which was basic, and we, based on user feedback, we came back with a few additions. Most notably, when John selected the date range on there, it right underneath it, it shows how many records were actually included in that report. So he knows what the impact was. Um, Again, as John stated, this brings attention to issues that may be a problem. It doesn't necessarily mean they are problems, but it's something you may want to look at. One question that we keep getting is Canada doesn't require first names on driver licenses, and a couple of states and Canadian provinces allow special characters in the driver license number. And, yes, we know that, but instead of building special rules, we just put it on there that, maybe that's something you want to look at. Maybe you meant to type an 8 and you accidentally hit the shift key and you typed a star instead of an 8, one of those things. The VIN accuracy, this change we made on it was to indicate which vehicle in the inspection didn't pass the VIN check. And again, this is based on the standard rules. Yes, you're going to have some homemade trailers that don't have a 17 character VIN. You're going to have some homemade trailers that have the prohibited letters in a VIN. But this is going to just bring them to your attention so you can look at them and make sure that you didn't make a mistake. And the noted one at the bottom there, the suspicious DOT numbers, that's something we've had to do because people tend to use US DOT number 1 when they can't find a DOT number. Well, no, you can't do that. You have to be accurate. And we had a complaint from a motor carrier that his US DOT number 999999 was being used on all kinds of inspections in a couple of states. So we're flagging those, and then we also look for ones that probably are made up like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and reverse. So that's just for your attention. And it seems like there was a question earlier about VIN numbers or DOT numbers. Okay. Go ahead and address that while we're here, stopped here. How are you going to look up past inspections, intrastate, do not have a DOT number? In the next release, on the left-hand side there, you'll be able to search carriers without starting an inspection. That will give you, not only looking that carrier up, but look for past inspections on them, and a name search will be available there. Let's see. Should we address these other questions while we're here, John? Or?
I can't see him, brother, so you decide.
Okay. The other one was question was asked and somebody else answered it. So, do you click submit after each inspection or at the end of the shift? Yes, you do submit the inspection when you're completed, or else you can't print it, and that makes it go live. If you're offline, you're going to have to wait till you get someplace with a connection, or else they won't transmit. So yes. And last question is, can you delete an inspection that is marked as draft? Yes, you can. That's the only time an inspection can be deleted. I don't know if John mentioned it or not, but
Haven't got there yet. Haven't got
Okay.
there
Uh,
yet.
the reason I asked that question, I don't know if an update was sent through um, late November 30 or early December 1, but when I came in December 1 and was working on the SafeSpect program, when you go to the home screen and you can put the DOT number in and it's the correct carrier, sometimes I will use that as my pre-screen. Okay, and I'll say that's the correct carrier and it'll bring me up their CSA score. Then I will decide if I want to inspect that carrier. Well, when I X out of the inspection, okay, it'll bring it up right here at the bottom where these 6 are. Well, it would never bring those up as drafts so I can delete them. When I came in this past Monday, my drafts were there, but I could not delete them.
I'll tell you why, brother. You just found a bug that we fixed last week, and or I should say the programmer that fixed, because you didn't have a vehicle associated with that inspection. It wasn't showing on your home screen. But that's been fixed, and the reason they populated for you is because we found that bug and they fixed it, and all those inspections that you had tried to do, that with that didn't have a vehicle now appeared on your home screen. So, with that being said, you'll notice this draft inspection down here. I'll go ahead and address it, and I'll come back to it. It says draft. It has the trash can next to it, so you can remove that inspection because it's not been submitted. So what we try to tell people, if somebody's doing what you are doing, that's perfectly fine. We will have that pre-screen functionality soon, so that you can do it a different way without starting an inspection. But as long as you don't submit the inspection, you can walk through an inspection in production, test the system out, do the things that you want to do to play with it, for lack of a better word, to train yourself, but don't hit submit. Once you hit submit, if you look at the draft inspection up to the top, that one doesn't have a trash can because I submitted it and then I pulled it back for editing or whatever. And I'll talk about that in a little bit. So once it's been submitted, it's an official record. It can't be deleted by you or a supervisor. The only people that can delete it is a database administrator, i.e., Jamie, right now, or one of the developers. So we don't want you to hit submit unless it's an actual inspection. As
Okay,
Jamie mentioned, as soon as you hit submit, it goes to the database.
but when I was having that issue, I continued to do inspections, and like right here, you had the last 6 previous inspections pulled up. Well, when they came up Monday, they were no longer in that last 6. So I had to go over to inspections on the left and find them, go back 20 and find them in there. And none of them have the trash cans there because they're in the inspection list, if that makes sense.
Yeah, we'll take. I'll take a note. We'll get back with you on that and help you get those deleted.
Okay, thank you.
Because what this does is it does you hit the nail on the head. It shows your most 6 recent inspections that need activity. These are the most 6 recent. You'll notice there's not an approved inspection there. To see your approved inspections, you do have to go to this inspection list as we looked at earlier, and that's where you see your approved ones. So the home screen is your most 6 recent that actually need activity. Up at the top, you'll see it lists how many inspections I've done today, 0. How many I've got pending, 13. That's not a good thing. You probably have a number there that is somewhat significant, that we need to help you deal with. And then lastly, the number that I've done for the month, which is 0. So, with that being said, this is just kind of like I said, a high level view of things that you need to deal with. We'll say this one's been rejected and it's been submitted. You can tell it's been submitted because it's got a permanent number. I'll talk more about that in a minute. There's that permanent number. Go back to my home screen. Uh, if I go to this one down here by the trash can that's not been submitted, you see it's got a temporary number. the software doesn't create the permanent number until you hit submit. And there's a bunch of reasons it does that. One of the reasons is just like this gentleman talked about, if he's got inspections that he didn't want to utilize, then this way you don't lose that number. And it also helps in offline functionality. But to the left of that one, this one you can see it's not been submitted either, but that little icon right there that my finger is pointing to indicates that this was actually started in offline mode. At some point, I went offline without internet connectivity, started this inspection, and now that I've got internet connectivity, my inspection is there for me, and it just lets me know that, hey, you started this offline. And that is a database storage thing. The other thing that's going to be good to know is everything on this inspection report will be queryable, downloadable. In the future, there will be an API that you will be able, your administrators will be able to download all the inspection data, and it will have all these kind of information. And if you edit an inspection, and have an audit trail on who changed it, when, how, why, so on and so forth. So this is a high level view of your home screen um, as we get ready to get started. I'll say a couple more things and I'll pause again. This is where you can enter a DOT number to start an inspection. Like I said, the pre-screening will be available to pre-screen without doing an inspection and then decide if you want to later. But this is where you start an inspection right now. You can also do an inspection without a DOT number if you hit click here. And this is one of those areas where some of the new business edits come into play. For example, the business edit's not there yet, but if you complete an inspection on an interstate carrier without a DOT number in interstate commerce, the software is going to expect to see a violation for a motor carrier operating in interstate commerce without a DOT number. You see here it asks you why there's no DOT number. If you start that inspection with that and complete it, the software is just going to, it's one of those data quality edits that's there to help you as you walk through the inspection and to make sure that you're doing the things that you need to do and to provide you some guidance throughout the software. One of the things that Jamie likes to stress, and me as well, is that this is more than just a data entry tool. It's an inspection platform, and we encourage you to utilize it as that, not just gather all your inspection data and then go use it as a data entry tool. Utilize it as a tool as you walk through your inspection, and we'll talk more about that in a minute. So, Jamie, John, I'm going to pause for a second just to see if there's any other questions before I move on.
Don't see any in the chat, and no one has their hand raised at the moment.
All right, so as I type that number in there, then you'll notice that as I type in a number, it's progressive. And as a reminder, again, I am not hitting the live database. I'm hitting a test database, but it's searching that carrier for me. And that's not the one I want to use. But you'll see that it, again, looks for that carrier for me. And when it gets down to the final number, there it is. Now, if you're offline, you're still going to have access to a database. It won't be as huge as the database you get online, but you will get things such as this federal auto service order. That's one of the things that's going to be stored in the offline database for you. Now, again, another caveat to that is that offline database is only as up to date as the last time you logged on. So if you're one of those guys that's working in an area where you have no internet connectivity frequently, and you're getting ready to go out and do inspections today, and it's been a day or two since you logged on with an internet connection, I would suggest that before you lose that internet connectivity, that you go ahead and log on to the inspection software, and that way it's going to update whatever needs to be updated for you. And then if you drive away and lose internet connectivity, it's just going to come back and say, hey, you don't have internet connectivity, and it's going to put you in offline mode, and you've already updated your database, so you're good to go, if that makes sense. So this one's telling me I've got a federal service order. The blue banner tells me this is active. This blue banner is a consistent theme that I want you to keep in your mind as we walk through here in a little bit. That's active. There's a federal service order. It gives me the mixed step. I can come down here and select um, that violation that he's got a federal out of service order on. I can go down and select my level of inspection. We'll come back and talk about levels in a minute. And then down here it asks me, do you want to go ahead and put a violation on this individual? And I'm going to say yes. And there's that violation that I selected. I can hit this little plus button and add that violation on. It brings up the violation tool. I can add the violation specific information. You'll see that it's out of service. And we'll talk more about the violation tool in a few minutes, but I just wanted to go ahead and get this violation on now. And you can see up here to the right-hand side where my cursor is, I've got one out-of-service violation on this individual for the operating on a federal out-of-service order, and there's the violation-specific data and the out-of-service until. So we'll talk more about that as we go through. Down to the blue banner again, there's my person carrier. There's the federal out of service information. There's the US DOT status, which is not good. It's inactive. IFTA right now, we do not have the API built to get IFTA data yet, so it's always going to be a red X right now. Easiest way to get that, if you've got access to the IFTA clearinghouse, you can run in and run the number off of that IFTA certificate, but we're working on getting an API to where we can do that directly without you having to touch it, but that's coming. There's that make step again. There's this authority type, insurance information that we pull for you, the inspection value, MCS 150 date, and this is real-time data because we're hitting the production database, what type of carrier, the UCR data, and again, this is real-time data where we are not pulling this out of Safer or any place. We are going straight to the UCR database with an API and pulling in the current information. Up here at the top, I've got the inspection date. I've got the time and time zone. At the end of the inspection, we will ask you to verify that the time and time zone is correct because it's pulling the time from your computer. And if you're I'm not real familiar with Arkansas, but if you've got two time zones like we do in Kentucky, we've got guides time, which is Eastern time, and then there's that thing called Central time. And we could be in either time zone in Kentucky in a given time. So we've got to make sure that if we switch time zones during the day, if it's pulling from the computer, that we change the time zone here. With the time, right now, you can back it up 20 minutes. And here's the theory behind that. Again, we want you to use the inspection tool as that a tool. And I realize, again, I did traditional policing for 21 years. And I realize sometimes you might stop a vehicle and you need to secure the driver, get the driver's license, make sure everything's copacetic, then go back to your car, and then you have to start the software, run the license, those kind of things. So this gives you 20 minutes to get the vehicle stopped, get everything secured, taken care of, and then go back and open up the software, run his license. Again, you don't have to open SIDless. You've got the inspection software. I'll show you in a little bit how you can just go ahead and run his SIDless check right here in the inspection piece, and you've got it done without having to do it twice. So it's an inspection tool, not just a database. Up here at the top is the amount of time you've been listening to me since I started this inspection. It's a running time. And there's that temporary number that I said it created. This number is another one of those things that's built by your administrator. For me, if I was still in Kentucky, it would start out with KY because that's my state. Now it starts out with US because I'm a federal inspector. Then the next 6 digits are built by your agency administrator, how he wants to identify you. For example, in Kentucky, my inspector number was 4240, a number that would never be used again after I left to identify my record of inspections forever. So your administrator has up to 6 digits to identify however you all want to identify your inspections. And then the last 4 digits will be sequential, as you'll see as we move forward through the inspection. All right. There's a little icon here where I can change the carrier. Maybe I looked at this and I said that's not who I wanted to look at. I've had fingered the DOT number apparently. Remember this violation right here. So I can go to change carrier and it says, are you sure you want to do that? And I'm going to say yes, and I'm going to type in a new DOT number, a good old one that I like to use a lot. and it's going to bring up now Doug Anders Distributing. Notice that that violation disappeared because it was associated with the carrier. And when I changed carrier, the software said, well, obviously that violation needs to go away because it's a different carrier. All this information has changed for Doug Andrus. And then next to the change carrier button is the carrier details. And this is a bunch of information on the carrier. This is a bunch of stuff that historically you would have to go to Query Central to get. You don't have to do that anymore. We're going to provide it for you, pulled down from the database, including highlighting things that go into the alert category. Just a visual indicator to bring things to your attention. This guy's crash indicator is in the alert category, so it's just highlighted, just to, again, provide you some information. Stuff that historically you would have had to go to Query Central to get. Now we're going to provide it to you automatically every time you do an inspection without having to go search for it. You can do previous inspection queries on this motor carrier. And again, this is going to search the entire repository, not just your work now. We're searching the entire repository. If somebody inspected this vehicle 10 minutes ago and they've submitted it, you're now going to be able to pull it up, look at it, verify the information, see if he had violations and such, and there it is for you. So that's the PIQ. You're used to seeing that in Aspen anyway. Next to that is the opportunity to add notes. And up at the very top, this is fairly new. It is in the production version as of Monday. You can see, do you want to print this on the report? If I said yes, printed on report, and you save that note, you can add another note. You can say not printed on report, not printed on report. Save that, and you'll see that this one is going to print on the report. We can look at this when we get there. When I complete the report and look at it, we will only see that this one note is actually printed on the report. So again, very new functionality that was just added. So you can add as many notes as you want, and your administrator can also do some stuff with that as well. Next to that, we can add co-inspectors if you want, and you can add co-inspectors from any of the inspectors that are in your agency, and you can search for them. And so anybody that's in Arkansas, your group, you'll have access to. To the right of that is attachments, and you can add an attachment, JPEG, so on and so forth. And each attachment you add has to be a maximum of two megabytes. But you can add as many of those as you want. So if I go look for a little tab here that I'm going to find, I know it's
What are you looking for, John?
I am looking for my theft report of my government vehicle, actually. Yes, that is correct. My government vehicle, there it is. Vehicle got stolen with a government license plate on it. So you can see that there is that attachment that I created. There's the different types that you can do. You can add more than one. You can download it. You can delete it. The the auto approver will be able to see this as well. The person that approves your inspection report will be able to see it. Now, there's a lot of questions that each state's going to have to decide on this attachment. It's going to depend on whether agencies even want to do allow attachments on the inspection. So they can set up the software to not allow attachments at all. Depending on your general orders, your rules of evidence, and how you look at photographs and those kind of things, again, that's going to be an individual agency decision on how you handle that. So a lot of questions to be answered about those.
Yeah,
All right,
and
let's pause again.
yeah, before we go, well, yeah, while he's pausing on the attachments, it, they will not print on the report. Um, and again, that's because of your state laws. You'd have to decide whether you can issue that information out to someone else. Likewise, you cannot see another agency's attachments. If you do a past inspection query, there will be no attachments shown to you.
Yep, exactly. Thanks, Jamie. I didn't mention that. Good point. Thank you. What else?
No hand yet. Nothing in the chat. But there's a hand up. Who is it?
Hey,
Let's see.
Jamie, I think we do have a few questions in the chat.
Oh, okay. I didn't see him.
Um,
John Mark Tarr, did you want to ask your question?
Yes, sir. It's question is, Mr. Schmoot, you were talking about the temporary inspection number. I think this is one of my troopers that have this question was raised. Is there a way to get the actual inspection number, not just the temp number? Like if we're writing a citation, but we're still the inspection is going to take longer, but we need that citation done. We'll put the inspection on the citation. Is there a way to get that permanent number because the temp is different?
In reality, yes, in a sense, because as we go through here, you'll see that the numbers become sequential. So as you do the inspection, if you know what your last inspection was, for example, you can go in. You could go in here, and that's a great point here. So let's just this inspection's up. I'm just going to jump right out of it. I didn't save. I didn't do anything. But I jumped up here and I can now see my last inspections, and there's all those numbers, and I can see them in sequential order. And I know my last one was 31. So the next one's going to be 32. And just keep that in your mind. And when we finish this inspection later on, we'll see if number 32 appears as the inspection number. So that's one way that you could do that. Right now, I guess it's the only way that you could do that.
Thank you.
Nope, thank you. Great question. So now we go back to this
Hey-
inspection, and there
hey,
it is.
Smoot.
Yep.
Sorry, real quick. We do have a couple of questions in the chat while you're here. I know there's 3 of them on this subject about an intra-state carrier that doesn't require a DOT number, or somebody who's within the 150-mile range that doesn't have a DOT number. If you could just show them how to do that no US DOT number.
Yep. So you can just type in your information here, make stuff up. A, B, C, 1, 2, 3. 101 Jindal, 514, reason. You can select other if the whether maybe it's an intrastate carrier, we already populated that for you. You can select that. If it's exempt, no DOT number, government vehicle, or some other reason, then you can enter that, and then you can start the inspection. And there you can see I've changed it there when I added it in there. So good question. But now this inspection will look, and it won't do it yet. I haven't built that edit yet. But down the road, if it looks at this as being an interstate trip with an interstate carrier, it's going to ask about whether there's a violation added or not. So great question. Hopefully that answers that. Next one,
Okay.
John.
Let's see your DOT number.
Jumping
Okay.
ahead a little bit.
Can ELD files be transmitted to this software, or do we have to PDF? Have to be in PDF file?
Great question. I have got actually right now it will not attach an ELD file. I've got a note on my desk to look into that and to see if we want to add that extension. Right now, you'd have to save it as a PDF file and add it, but I actually do have a note to look into that to see if we can provide the capability to add that ELD file. It's just it's not even a text file. It's a specific file for the ELD.
But you will be able to view it now. It's just not
Yeah.
attached. And you'll
Yeah.
show that when we get up into the driver section.
Yes, I will. We actually require you to go
And we
look
do.
at the ELD, but I'll
Yeah,
get there in a minute.
Okay, we do have one other question, and it's when inspections are edited by another person, does it show that it was edited by another user?
In the database, it does. It will store
Yeah,
that in the database.
You know, we have a very in-depth auditing of every record uh, within the system. Um, right now, that's all saved behind the scenes. After the first of the year, the audit trail will be available to admins, I believe.
Much more than you had in the past.
Yep.
Good questions.
That's it. So let's keep
All
rolling.
right, moving on. So at the top, you'll see there's basically 5 levels of buttons, and some of them have subcategories. You can do the inspection in order, as I normally do, because I'm a kind of a sequential kind of guy. But as I mentioned, if you want to do stuff out of order, like go ahead and run the driver. Maybe I want to go ahead and run this driver. Maybe I want to go ahead and enter the VIN. I can go to vehicle. I can add a VIN, and I can run that vehicle through a database called VPIC, and it brings up a bunch of information on the vehicle. It does not pull in a GVWR because we want you to populate that from the VIN plate or correct VIN from wherever you gather it, not the registration plate. But we want you to pull in the correct GVWR because we're going to build some business edits built based on the GVWR. You can also search for a vehicle by plate number. For example, ABC123, I think is the one I put in there. And if I go search, this is going to search the repository. It doesn't search um, the entire registration database. It searches the inspection database. You see, there's 5 inspections where I've got ABC 123 CDL as a VIN plate, so I can open up these inspections and look at them, see if it's the proper vehicle that I want to look at, see if there was any violations on this inspection. I determine that this is the one that I want to use, and I can add this little plus button, and that will bring in the vehicle information for me. Again, it still doesn't bring in the GVWR. It will run VPIC to make sure it's a valid VIN, and it gives me the information, and then I still have to put in the GVWR because we want to make sure that's correct. Everything else that you see it populated that was there. There is an estimated GVWR in case it's one of those old vehicles and you couldn't get the actual GVWR, so you had to estimate it. So what this does is it turns off the business edit because you can't run business edits off of estimated stuff. There's also the opportunity to tell us it's a glider kit. Obviously, it's ELD stuff. And then lastly, we want you to tell us all information looks good. There's the mileage question that's not mandatory, but it's requested. This is to help compliance review officers in their duties. They had some compliance review folks that actually asked to have that added way back when. So I'm going to save that. And I've got my vehicle that I added through the license plate through a previous inspection query. I can do previous inspection queries, I can edit it, or I can delete it. There will be times when you have to enter a vehicle manually. So to the far right here is this little icon that says Add Vehicle. So if I click on Add Vehicle, it brings up the tool to allow me to enter a vehicle manually. And I'm going to make it an intermodal chassis and watch what happens to the screen. What you would expect. Now you get to gather all that intermodal chassis information that you are already familiar with. If you change it to chassis owned by motor carrier, as you know, that stuff goes away. That's nothing new. I'm going to type in VIN. You saw that earlier on a bunch of the questions. I'm going to type in a VIN GVWR. I'm going to type in the SCAC number that you're used to seeing. Again, this is not a nuance. Just want to show you that it does work. There is the opportunity if this carrier has marked it some other way other than the SCAC number, then you can turn that off, and that way it will ask you to populate the information however you got it. But if I search it with the SCAC, you see it populates everything that I need. If I gathered it some other way, I can change how I actually gathered the information. These questions you're used to seeing, no sense in wasting any time on those. There's an estimated GVWR in case it is. I can save it. Well, looky here. It tried to tell me, because this was red in color, and I hit save, it's saying this is not a valid VIN. It doesn't pass VIN check. It's only 5 of 17 digits, but you can confirm it for me. You can type it in again, and if you type it in again and matches, you're telling me that it is a valid VIN, whether it's a homemade trailer or whatever. And I'm going to hit save, and now it accepts that VIN that doesn't pass VIN check. Because as Jamie mentioned earlier, you're going to come across trailers that have homemade trailers and that kind of thing, and have bad VINs. So it just gives you the opportunity to add that. Again, you can do the same things: VIN check, edit, or previous inspection query, edit, or trash it. And you can add more vehicles if you need to as you go through here. One thing that we have built that obviously the power unit needs to be unit one. If you, for whatever reason, end up putting the trailer in first, uh, and then put the power unit in, it's going to go ahead and make the power unit one. If you've got a drive-away tow away where you've got 3 truck tractors associated with the inspection, as you enter each one of those truck tractors, it's going to ask you, is this the power unit? So it will identify, again, tools that are built in to provide data quality and to help you through the inspection and to help you keep from making mistakes and keep you from not forgetting things. So I've done my vehicles. Notice that everything left of that turned red in color because it says, you can go out of order if you want, but just be advised, there's stuff back here, business edge saying you got to finish. So if I go to the front screen, my courier is green, cargo is red, so I've got to add my cargo information. Notice 5 of these 7 boxes are red in color because they are required. Obviously, shipping paper number and shipper name are not required um, because you may not have those. So it just gives you the opportunity to correct. Now, put that stuff in, those things go away. I can hit the next button, or I can go up here and see that everything's green there. I can hit next, or I can go ahead and click on the level button and go to my location. We'll slow down here for a second. As you can see, it populated my favorite location that I had selected as my default. So that's my default location. Everything is copacetic. It's already done it for me because I set default. If I'm want to be in live view and I want to go to my current location and I click on current location, it's going to turn off the default and it's going to pull up my current location, which is very much correct. That's where I am. You now know where I live. A couple of caveats about this. One, to be able to utilize Google Maps to identify your location, your software has to be set to allow that. Your hardware has to be set to allow that. If your agency set your hardware to not allow your identification to be located, or your software is set not to allow that, or if your software is set to require permission every time, then those are caveats. The other big one is if your agency is using an a VPN, got API on the brain. If your agency is using a VPN, then the location may be identified incorrectly. For example, maybe your VPN set to show your location as your headquarters, or maybe it's haphazardly set to put up bogus locations wherever it is. Then you need to adjust that. Jamie's got some information from somebody that figured out how to modify that, and Google Maps will publish. Jamie's going to test that and publish a document on it later. But again, your agency would have to authorize making that modification. So those are the 2 big issues we've seen is the AVI. The other one that is not as prevalent, but if you're working off of a MiFi and that MiFi is in an area where you're bouncing off 4 or 5 different towers, then it could throw the location off a little bit. But at the end of the day, you can always modify your location by drag and drop, zoom in and out. And if I actually was over here on US 68 at Manuel Boulevard, I could double click on it and change my location that way. So you can still utilize the map even if it won't identify your location accurately because of the settings in your computer or your VPN, that kind of thing. So the map is still very usable. Next to that is the fixed locations. Like I said, you can grab location from a fixed location. and by clicking the check mark, you notice it changed over here. I can select it from my favorite locations here as well if I want to do that. I can also edit the location up here if I want to edit the location or add one manually from this screen. So there's multiple different ways to add the locations. I particularly like having them fixed unless you're just out cruising and you get the situation where you're just driving down the road. That current location comes in very, very handy. All right. Jamie, anything else about locations? It does want us to accept the location since I changed it. Like I said, when I pulled it in as a default, you didn't see this button, but because I changed it, it wants me to say it's a good location. Anything else on locations, Jamie?
I don't think so. I personally noticed that sometimes when you're using a favorite location or a fixed location, it it acts like you didn't select anything. Uh, when that happens, um, what I do, I tab out of the field and I go back and I uh, click on the right there. I'm pointing to John's screen and you can't see it where it says selected location and the pencil. And I might make a little edit to that and save it, and then it prints properly.
Cool. All right, so that's the location. We'll go to level, even though I've already set the level as a level. Oh, no, I started a new inspection. That's right. I forgot I started a new one. So the levels is another one of those areas that sets stuff. For example, if I go to vehicle right here, you'll see that it doesn't have a brake information because I've not set level yet. But if I go to level and set it as a level 1 and go back to vehicle, you'll now see that I have brake tools available. If I change it to a level 3, you'll go back to the vehicle and you'll notice the vehicle turn to green and then there is no brake tool. So the levels is another of those things that sets edits for you. I've got mine set to where I'm a level 6 inspector. Your administrator sets that up. If you're not a level 6 inspector, you won't have this button active. But if I do select level 6, you notice it brings in the level 6 tab for me now so that I can add all that information. If I go back to levels and change it back to level 1, that level 6 tab goes away. So the tools are there to provide us, again, the things that you need to do your job with things you're not. If you're one of those agencies, Renee, I can't remember if you all have just level 3 inspectors only or not. But if you have folks like Tennessee does that are only level 3 inspectors, level 3 can be the only thing that's activated based on how your administrator sets them up. So the software is very much role based and customizable for your agency based on certain things. We're going to leave it at level 1 for now. We're going to go next to this preliminary question screen and then we'll take another pause. These are the reasons for the inspection. Why did I stop this vehicle? What is the primary reason I stopped this vehicle for an inspection? Maybe it was an e-screen inspection, and it gives you the opportunity to select the primary tool that you use. Was it a thermal imaging device that reason I stopped it, and it stores that data. If it wasn't an e-screen inspection, it perhaps was a traffic enforcement inspection. And this is another one of those business edits that sit there to help your database folks too, and your people that do your CVSP and gather data. If you select traffic enforcement here, the software is going to expect to see a traffic enforcement violation on the inspection. If you don't select traffic enforcement and put a traffic enforcement violation on, it's going to ask you later on, did you mean to select traffic enforcement? Border enforcement is another one of those things that you can set based on your agency's responsibilities. If you don't have border enforcement stuff, you won't see that. And then lastly, maybe it's just a random inspection that you've done, so there's no real reason, so you can select other. Over here's inclusions. And these again are tools that you're telling the software you want or maybe don't want, like size and weight. If you collect size and weight data and you click on size and weight, it'll bring that screen available to you. Alcohol controlled substances. If you use performance-based brake testing, same thing. If I click on performance-based brake testing, I cannot say that 3 times quickly. And I go over to my vehicle, we'll see that it added that tab there now. It gives me the opportunity to add the PBBT information. If I go back to my preliminary questions and then uncheck that, that tool goes away. Same thing with hazardous materials. We'll come back to that in a second. Post crash, there's one nuance here. Um, whether the inspection was completed at the scene or not, the inspection or crash identifier, and whether it was fatal injury or property damage wreck. And I save that. And we'll look at post crash stuff here in a little bit. But that's gathering more information to help as we identify ways to reduce crashes. And lastly, drug interdiction, how many arrests that there were, that kind of thing. And then lastly, let's go back to hazmat. When I click on hazmat, you'll notice it opened up the hazmat tool. And there's going to be some changes here. We've got some hazmat specialists working with us. I am not one of those. To help make some nuances here that are available for you to make your life easier. One of the big ones that we added already is where you can select the UNA number, and when you type in that correct number, it's going to populate the proper shipping name for you. If it's one like this that has multiple proper shipping names, then it's going to give you a drop down list so that you can select the proper shipping name. If it's just an individual, it would just populate that one. You can add up to 10 entities of hazardous material. With Aspen, you could do 3. You can do up to 10 here. It does ask the question about the hazardous material safety permit, if it's required to have one, if it is required to have one. If they don't have one, it asks you, do you want to add a violation? And it gives you the opportunity to do that there. So that's the hazmat stuff. Again, there's going to be some more nuances coming to this in the near future. Right now, if you select level 3, then that hazmat tool doesn't appear. We are looking at capturing some hazmat information on level 3s, but we're still talking to some hazmat folks about the reality and requirement of that. So, anyway, what else? We'll pause for questions there for a second, Jamie.
So there is one question in the chat that is, can you open size and weight tab?
Actually, have not. I've built it, but we have not actually incorporated it yet because nobody that we've trained is using it. I can tell you, I built it off of the Minnesota model, and I could probably get to it fairly quick, actually. Since you ask, I want you to show you. It's here. I built it. It's just not in the software yet because nobody's needed it, and it's kind of doing stuff on an as needed basis.
Yeah, I have mine set.
Let's see here. Where did I put it? It should be right there, very last thing. I built this in May of 2020, but this is kind of what it looks like. I can't say it'll be the final thing because we're going to get some guidance for those people that actually collect it. It was built off the Minnesota model, I can tell you that, but it's not in the software yet. I'll just pause for a second so you can look at it, just in case there's any questions. But as we get this incorporated, I'm sure there'll be some modifications that'll be made based on agency feedback, which is the way a lot of the things that we're doing. We want your feedback. We want to be able to build the things that work for you all. Now, obviously, we can't please everybody and can't make every little cosmetic and change, but the things that matter, we're really jumping on. So that's kind of what the one I built looks like, but it's not incorporated yet. Great question, though. Thank you. Did that help? I hope. What else, John?
Hey, sir, I have a hazmat question. If you can go back to that page. So I noticed when if I'm doing my inspections on my computer in my car, say roadside, this screen right here where it shows the class or quantity or UN, all of that is scrunched together to where I can't even see the class type.
It's fixed with the new version. It's actually
It's fixed with a
here.
new version. Awesome.
Yeah,
Thank you,
you'll
sir.
see here. You'll see here that you can see it. I don't know if I can't remember, Jamie, if this was pushed this time or not, but it is fixed. Whether it's been pushed to the new version or not, it's been fixed.
Yeah, I noticed
Okay.
when I did it on my tablet, it was scrunched, but when I did it on when I had it transferred to like a desktop, a larger screen, it'd be open.
So one thing you might look at is see what, and that's a great another great thought. Make sure that you don't have your tablet um, display set to be at like 150% or something like that, because that does cause some issues when it's trying to format it. It can only do so much. We've seen a couple issues where people had even their computer set at like 150 percent display, and it can't. The software just can't adjust to that kind of a difference. So we take it back to 100% or 110% or something like that, and it fixes the issue. Great question.
Is
So
that in
try that.
reference to the size, text, and apps and other items
Yeah,
on size layout? Okay.
yeah, yeah. So,
Thank you.
so check that and see if that fixes that issue on your iPad. It may be that issue.
Yeah, I'll test that.
Great question though. Again, thank you.
Hey, Smoot. I'm sorry, but I have to jump on another call that I'm hosting. But I just want to thank everybody on the call for their input today, and excited to have you on. But you'll be in good hands with Mr. Smoot and Mr. Vassar. Thank you.
I need
Thank
to
you,
be on
Renee.
the 1 o'clock call too, so hopefully we'll finish soon. All right. Thanks, John. So let's go to vehicle. We've already added the vehicle, but we didn't enter the brake data. So I'm going to enter the brake data. The biggest nuances here is we're looking at brakes per unit and then collectively. So you can add up to 10 axles if you needed to per unit. Let's not do that today. That would take a while. Let's just do 3. Are there different size air chambers on the same axle? A question you've asked yourself multiple times, but never seen on the software. If you select yes, it just gives you the opportunity to add the chamber for both sides of the axle. Maybe you've got a long stroke on one side and a regular stroke on the other side, and instead of having to put it in the notes, you can actually do it that way here. We'll just change it to no. Steer axle is another thing. It is new. It defaults to yes for the power unit steer axle. Everything else is no. If you had a trailer attached, it has a front steer axle, i.e. a dolly converter or full trailer, then you'd want to change the front axle to a steer axle because it becomes a steer axle for inoperative brake purposes. The other nuance is no real big deal. This isn't significantly other than it's another visual indicator. The brake adjustment limit's green, a half a defect's yellow, and a full defect is red. This is just another visual indicator to kind of help you as you go through identify. When I click on my measurements up here, and if I put a brake that's got a half a defect, add it, and then and just going to visually show me that for lack of better purposes on this configuration, I've got 1.5 brakes out of adjustment. Notice it puts the brakes right there. There's my 1.5. Also brings it down here. We'll go ahead and enter the brake data for the trailer and just dump it in here. This is not a nuance, so no sense in really talking about it too much other than just show you what happens. And now I've got my brakes there for my trailer, and I've got the total configuration like you used to seeing. And again, it just gives me a good visual indicator that I've got 1.5 brakes out of adjustment, not 2. So I've only got 1 based on our 20% criteria. So just a visual indicator to kind of guide and direct us as we go through here. Later on down the road, we'll add business edit to actually check the 20% criteria for you. The driver, we're going to do driver, and again, we're going to run SIDless for you, so pay attention to what happens to the entry screen here. USA, nothing changes. If I go to Mexico, it changes. It auto-populates the state to Mexico, which is what needs to be done. And if I go to Canada, it opens up additional opportunities for data because we have to have more information to run a Canadian license through SIDLIS. And I've ran this guy a few times. Again, we're using a test database, so it's not going to be real data. You can do an advanced search if you need to. But if I run this guy through SIDLIS, it's going to bring back the prohibited status, and it's going to do it just like it does in SIDLIS. If the guy is prohibited, it's going to show prohibited status. If he's not prohibited, you see nothing. So again, I got to add some information because this thing is not a full database, but it gives me all the information I need, endorsements, restrictions, all the medical information that I would need. I tell it everything looks good, and I've got my driver there in prohibited status. I can add my co-driver the same way, or I can add somebody manually. If I just like I did a vehicle, if I go over here to add driver manually, I can enter a driver manually. And if I type in December the 6th, 2000, how in the heck is it December already? It doesn't like that because it's asking, looking for the date of birth. So there are some business edits built on the date of birth. So it's got to be before at least 2015. So if I make it 2014 and enter, it says, well, this driver looks like he's either 18, less than 18 or greater than 90. If that is a correct date of birth, you need to enter it a second time, just like we did with the VIN, to confirm it, and it's going to accept that date of birth. So now I've got my driver and my co-driver. To the end, I want to go to finish, and I want to do this on purpose. Notice that red, I'll come back to that in a second. This special study field is a special study built by FMCSA, and this replaces the old special study fields. FMCSA can create special studies like the agricultural exemption study that is in place right now. But the other cool thing is states can build their own as well. This is one that I built just to see, um, uh, to show you was this an inspection done on overtime? How many hours did this guy do? What was the time frame that he worked? What grant was it on? So this is a cool thing that your states can build really just based on their imagination. Administrator can build these state specific. You'll be able to query them on them when you get the data down, and you'll be able to use them perhaps for your CVSP development, Renee, for whatever data questions that you get routine answers for. You can go ahead and build these, and it's much easier to deal with than the old local fields that you were used to using in safety net. So great tool. If I was still with the state, this would excite me a lot because I would use it a lot. Back to the driver. Um, it's red in color because I did not do the EROD stuff. If you enter um, your file comment, if you've got a driver that is required to have an ELD and you enter your file comment to get him to transfer it through web services, and you enter that file comment, it's going to pull down the last EROD information that you had that you just transferred. It's going to do a high level query of this individual. There's the information. Again, it's not going to match this driver because this is test data, but there's a high level review for you. And then you have to click on this to go to eRods, the electronic version, the online version of eRods, and log in to check the eRods. I'm trying to get that changed too, to where you can also go to the desktop version where you have more functionality to be able to save stuff. If there's no ELD required, you can click on that, select the reason, and these are straight from regulation. There is an other. Maybe he did have an ELD, but he couldn't transfer it because he didn't have internet connectivity in his truck. So either one of these will bypass the requirement to go to eRod. So we'll just like no eRods required. And I go down through here, I can see everything is green and copacetic, so it likes me. Um, there's my temporary number. I can go ahead and submit it. I can go ahead and go to next. And I have not done violations yet, so that's the next thing we're going to do. So we'll go to vehicle, we'll go to violations, and here's where I'm going to slow down a little bit and ask you to really slow down and pay attention to if you're multitasking. First thing is the blue banner. Remember, the blue banner is the active unit. Right now, the truck tractor is the active unit. If I want to change it to the intermodal chassis, I need to do that. There's multiple opportunities to do this when we're doing violations. Now, this is really one of the big nuances that have come into play. Um, all the violation codes are different. Well, I won't say all. The majority of the violation codes are different than what you're used to seeing. Not because of SafeSpect. This was going to happen regardless. There was a committee, a CVSA committee developed several different SMEs to help develop these violation codes that are more specific in most instances, that also are hard coded for the out of service condition. So you have to decide whether your violation meets the out of service condition and select the right violation. We built a lot of these in to subcategories for you. For example, if I click on fuel systems, again, there's my truck tractor. If I want the violation to be on the intermodal chassis, I need to select the intermodal chassis. But when I look at all these violations, we'll notice that every one of these has fuel in the description. I'm just going to grab a dripping leak. When I click a dripping leak, it activates the current date. Notice everything else is deactivated. We'll see differently for hours of service. Notice out of service is automatically set to yes. It's automatically set to yes, and you can't change it because the dripping fuel leak is out of service by the out of service criteria. Citation, if you want to add a citation number or warning number, I'm going to purposely leave this blank for a second, and then you have to put in the specific data, driver's side, whatever. I want to hit save, and it's going to say, nope, not yet, because I did not enter the post-crash data. So I'll select that, and I'll hit save. And if I go back up here into my violations, I'll see that I've got one out-of-service violation for a dripping leak. That's one way to search for violations. But here's a way that I'm going to encourage you as you get used to these new violation codes. Search violations. If I click on this box right here, the search violation tool, it brings up the violation search tool, which I really like. You'll notice that here it defaults to vehicle. I'm going to open that up for a second. There's really three categories of violations that you're going to put on. You're going to put driver, vehicle, and carrier violations. Before it was only driver or vehicle. Things like UCR that forever we put on the driver now goes on the carrier. We've also broken up the violations a little bit to help you search because there's so many violations. For example, if I'm on hazardous materials here, and you can see I can click a group, and that will show everything. If I click on vehicle again, and I click that X, it goes to group. It's going to search everything. But if I search vehicle only, and I type in 172 and hit enter, nothing comes back because that's a hazmat violation. If I go to group and search, it's going to find it. If I go to hazmat and search, it's going to find it. But this is a tool that I really like to search for violations. And there's a couple ways to do that. First, I like regulatory numbers because I know what the regulations are. The regulations don't change as often as some things do. And I know that if I type in 393.205C and I'm on vehicle, I'm going to get 393.205. Now, pause with me for a second. This is one of those violations you're used to seeing because you've got wheel, rim, fasteners, lugs, yada, yada, yada. A couple of things to point out here. It brings up two of them. They have different subscripts. They are both critical violations, which is important when it comes to CVSA decals. The descriptions are basically the same. To the far right-hand side, though, you'll see there's out-of-service levels. The top one is out of service for all of these levels. The bottom one is only out of service for level 6 because level 6 are held to a higher standard. So if my violation that I have in front of me is a non out of service condition, I can't select this top one because if I select the top one, it's going to default to out of service. So you still have to drive the software. If I've got 393.205C and it's not an out of service condition, I need to select the bottom one. You still have to drive the software. Again, everything's set for me. It's defaults to no. I still have to do the post crash stuff. I still have to add my additional information for the carrier and mechanic and all that. And now I add the violation, and it's not an out of service condition. So I've added a non out of service. The other thing that I like about this search tool is you can do narrative. For example, air leak. And if I type in air leak, it brings up all of these violations that have air leak in the description. You have an audible air leak at a proper connection, audible air leak at other than a proper connection. Again, you know that one of these is out of service, the other one is not. So you have to depict proper violation. The 396-381, audible air leak from a brake chamber. Obviously, it's not out of service, and it's 396-381 because an audible air leak at a brake chamber is not in the regulation, but it is a violation developed by committee because it's a serious safety violation. This is the other thing that the software is preventing is from people from making up violations. As you know, a lot of violations do not become a violation until it reaches the out of service condition. Historically, some people have tried to take that out of service condition, knowing that the violation did not reach that level yet, and still put it on as a violation, but not out of service. You can't do that anymore. The out of service conditions are built into the system based on the out of service criteria. So if I add that violation, again, same old stuff, gives me the opportunity to add my information. It's not out of service, and I can hit save, and it wants that information, and I hit save, and I'm good to go. Drivers, the same thing. You can grab violations down here, or just grab a 14-hour violation. Again, blue banner is important. I'm just going to grab a 14-hour violation real quick. Notice now all of these are active. If I select the first day, it's going to say, is he currently in violation? Yes. If I says yes, it changes it to out of service. If he's not currently in violation, it sets it to not out of service. There's my date for this violation. If I found another one, and he also had a violation on Sunday, notice it adds the violation date here. There's that information, and I can click on save, and it's going to do exactly like it should, and it's going to put both of those violations on here as two separate violations because each day, as you know, is a separate violation. So again, with the driver, that search tool is very helpful to search for those violations. You search for drugs, and you'll find every violation that has drugs in the narrative. This is the biggest nuance, folks. This is the thing that's going to take longer for you to get used to. I'll tell you, it's working. Is it perfect? Or were there a few missing violations? Yeah, we found a few missing ones. I mean, the committee didn't hit everything perfect, but we're working on fixing the things that you guys find that need to be fixed. So that's how to deal with the violations. Again, it's going to take a little bit of a nuance to get used to that. I'm finished the inspection. There's that message to verify the time. I said, okay. We'll notice up here the CVS decal is deactivated because I put a critical violation on the truck tractor. There's my out of service decal. If I use an out of service decal, your agency can say you don't, and you won't see that. It'll be deactivated. This one, unit 2, is wanting a CVSA decal because I had no critical violations. If I don't put in a CVSA decal number, I've got to tell it why. If I don't, the software is going to say, why didn't you? So I can look at my inspection here as I want to. There's all that information as I scroll down through here. I can look at it in paper view. This is a draft of the copy of the inspection, so I want to look at it, see if everything's copacetic. Notice it doesn't have the report number because it hasn't created it yet. You can't print it from here. There's my visual indicator on my brakes. There's all my violations. There's my post-crash data. There's my hazmat information. Special checks, it was post-crash. Down here are my notes. There's my state information that I added. And then lastly, there's my intermodal chassis provider information. So this is just, again, an opportunity to look at the inspection before you go ahead and hit submit. Once I do hit submit, it's going to ask me for the time. Gives me the same thing, same opportunity to set the time ahead 20 minutes. When I go ahead and publish it, it gives me my final number. And look, I think I said it would be number 32, and it is. God is good. And inspection software works. So I can view it. It says it's submitted. If I go back to this screen, my home screen, um, we'll see that number 32 is now going to show and submitted. And I'm actually going to just do something else. I'm going to do this again. I'm going to bail out of the software right in the middle of me trying to do something just to show you that you don't have to hit save. When I go back to the software, open it back up. I didn't hit save. I didn't even let it finish what it was doing. It's logging back in. I'm going to go back in as my inspector, and there's number 32. If I change to the approver role, I'm going to switch role, go to approver. Number 32 is there waiting for me. I can open it up. I can edit it. I can look at it in pay-per-view. I can print it. I can look at the attachments. I didn't add an attachment on that when I did it to the one that I started a new one to show you the carrier stuff, the add carrier. I can look at it. What I can approve it or I can decline it. I'm gonna go ahead and approve this one. There it tells me it's approved. I'll go back to my inspector row. Notice number 32's disappeared, but if I go back to my inspection list, there's number 32 as an approved inspection. If I had rejected it, I'm going to open up this rejected one. And if I go to the notes, you'll see where it was rejected, where I rejected this one, and I put a note on it of why it needed to be repaired. So that's what happens when it's rejected. If I want to edit an inspection that's been submitted, I accepted that one. This one hasn't been submitted. I haven't finished it. If I open up an inspection to some edit it that I've submitted, it's going to ask me why I want to edit it. Oh, edit change carrier, and it allows you to edit the inspection mostly for things like you had an out of service condition, and the guy fixed the out of service condition, asked for reinspection. So you open it up to show that the item was repaired at scene, and it gives you the opportunity to show that repaired at scene and then enter a CVSA decal if you need to after that. So that's everything down and dirty with a fire hose. Jamie, we'll just pause for some questions and see if there are any. I know we're a little past time, but we're just opening up for questions. Is Jamie still here? Did he bail on me too?
No, I'm still here. Sorry, I was on mute. First question, if an ELD is required, inspector chooses to inspect rods on the driver's device instead of transferring rods, can you add an option to select inspect on screen or something similar?
Run it by me one more time.
Okay. ELD is required. Inspector chooses to inspect the rods on the driver's device instead of transferring the rods. Can you add an option to select inspect on screen or something?
Well, the preferred method with E-rods is to utilize E-rods. That's the preferred method. So we have to take that upon guidance of somebody beyond us, I guess, because the preferred method to check the ELD is through E-rods, absent not being able to do it for some reason. We'll take that up with enforcement.
Next question, is there a way to change a violation from out of service to not out of service without having to start over from the violation select?
Yes. No. Yeah. No. They mean, you mean after it's been added or?
Yes. Example,
Oh,
would you write it in, go back and double check something, realize it shouldn't be out of service, so you just delete and start over?
right.
Right.
And there's a reason for that. You can't, once you've entered a violation, you can't just modify it other than whether there's a citation written or something like that because of the business edits that are associated with violations. So if you put it on the wrong unit, you just need to delete it and go back and add it to the proper unit. And that's because of business edits associated with violations. Good question.
this one, see if I understand it. When we meet the 20% criteria for brakes out of service, one brake on truck and one on the trailer, it still gives up the option to enter a CVSA sticker on the vehicle we didn't place it on. Didn't realize that.
I had to check that because it should be a critical violation. It shouldn't.
Yeah.
If it, and there's the 393-4053 question that I'll ask you. And it's deactivated on both.
Yeah.
Next question.
Okay. I don't see any more questions in here.
Cool.
Okay. So John's over. I know this has been quick. I know this has been a lot to take in. Um, from the questions, it looks like some of you already been using the software. Good, thank you. If you have more questions, we do have another office hours session, as we call it, on Tuesday the 19th. In the meantime, if someone on your side would volunteer to gather up questions and concerns and send those to tech support, we'll deal with them as we get them. And again, any serious violation, serious issue comes up while you're using the software, contact tech support first. And we're here to help.
Hey, Jamie, I have a lot of approvers that are on the phone, and you never went through how to do approving or
Oh, okay.
the data key
John, you want me to
analysis.
handle that real
Just a
quick?
different rule.
I do what?
The approval steps? You still have
Oh,
it
I
up
did.
there?
Yeah, let's see. I can do that real quick. I thought I did show approver. Barely. I didn't show it completely. So if I've got a switch row as an approver, there's the inspections that I rejected. I don't have one, but I can open it up as a rejected inspection, and I can look at all the data. I can look at it in pay-per-view. I can edit it. I can do whatever I need to do, and then I can either decline the inspection or I can approve it. If I approve it, it's now going to go to the approved status. It shows it's been approved by and published by an individual, and there's then the final number. I can again view it, whatever I need to do. But that's all there is to the approval process. It's very simple. You can look at it. You can spend as much time as you want looking at it. It's based on how you want to review it. Some people like to look at them in pay-per-view and review them that way. Or you can look at it, like I said, in the high level view here as well. It's however you as an approver decide to look at it and go through all the
Okay, so with that being
functionality.
said, right there, if he decides to reject it, how does the officer know why he rejected it?
Great question. So let's decline it. Let's go ahead and decline it. I'm going to put in a note.
So as soon as you hit decline, it brings up this box right here.
Yep.
Yes.
And you put a
Okay.
note in there and decline it, and it's going to come up decline, and it's number 24. And if I go back to my inspector row, uh, there's number 24 rejected. And if I open it back up and I go to the notes, there's a note I put in. I can't type, but it says decline to fix a driver with 2 Rs. And there's the date and time that I did it. It's December 6th and it's 1:16.
Okay, and then the next question on the approver, if he saw that it was something with 2 Rs or whatever you just said, he can choose to fix it himself. Does a box come up and then does he write in there, change the last digit of the VIN number to a 6 from a 5? Or you said that
Yeah.
approver can
Yeah, if
correct
the
something
approver,
if it's simple.
yeah, if the approver selects the edit button, it's going to say, why are you editing this inspection? I say,
Okay.
oh, I thought it did. Doesn't it, John?
Well, this has been open 3 times, so that's
Oh,
why.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, but yeah, you can edit it for him. He say, hey, I forgot to put that citation number in there. Would you add citation 12345 for me? Then you can open it up and fix it for him. Perhaps you missed that and you approved it, and you've already approved it. You missed it. And he wrote a citation, and he calls me back. Hey, I meant to write a citation number on that inspection report, and you've already approved it. So you can do one of 2 things. You can open it up and edit it and put the citation number on for him, or even though it's been approved, you can go ahead and decline it and send it back to him again anyway. Even though it's been approved, you can still go ahead and decline it and send it back to him with a note on it.
Okay. Okay. And then on the data queue analyst doing the data queue part of it, once we go to this, what's the process of, is it just when you make the change, then a comment box comes up, or?
So I'm in data queue and I just opened up an approved inspection. Excuse me. I'm going to go into edit mode real quick, and there's no violations on this one, so I'm going to add one real quick. I'm going to fool the system a little bit. I'm going to add a violation. I'm going to write a citation 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I can't type 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I've added a violation to the inspection, and I'm going to go ahead and go to that violation. Oops. Up here, I'm in data queue mode. I'm going to go to that violation, and we can see that violation. I put a citation on. As a citation, there's your citation adjudication information. So the data queue person is the only one that will see this. They can add the citation result, and they can add the RDI number. They can add the result date and comment. And I'm not a data queue guy, but this was built based off the existing data queue functionality, correct?
No,
Jamie?
I do this part,
Yes.
but let's just say they're going to remove a violation.
Yeah.
Show me what would happen if they were going to remove that violation.
So if you want to delete the violation, you can go ahead and remove it.
Yeah.
And it would prompt you again before you edit it, to put in the comment why you're editing it. It's a big word.
And it will flag in the system that you changed it, you removed the violation, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
But you don't have a box that comes up and makes you put the RDR number in there at all?
Oh, that's a good point. We don't have that for other types
Okay.
of something we need to add.
So when you
So
delete
there's a
it,
tracking. Okay. We'll just put that in the comments. I'll make them write the RDR number and whatever they've done, because I do all the fixing for them right now, so it's all consistent with my wording and stuff in the notes, and I want it to be the same way on these inspections in this system.
get you. So if you delete a violation now in Aspen or safety net, it requires you.
No, I put it in the notes.
Okay.
But for the adjudicated citation, it must have a RDR number. You can't unless you make one up. But
yeah, for that one you have to.
Yes. but I just want to make it sure that we're not having all these inspections changed. I mean, I do put the word DQ and then change I type out whatever I change on an inspection without the data queue number if it doesn't have a data queue, if it's a call in or we found the mistake ourselves. So I'm just trying to find a way so we can keep track of what is what. So you answered my question. I was under the understanding that when you made a change, there would be an RDR box and you can either fill it in or not, but
Yeah,
important.
I've written myself a note. We can add that as an enhancement.
Yeah, I like that. I like adding that. If they delete it or edit it at all under the data queue role, there needs to be some kind of identification published. I agree.
Yeah.
That's an easy fix. That's one of those things that's good to have feedback. Excellent. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else?
There's a question in there. It's asking if the data queue people will be able to see the attachments that have been added
Yes,
to the
they can.
inspection.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's the admin, approvers, and data queue people that can see the attachments, and the officer
And the inspectors on their own inspections. Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Awesome.
Anything else?
Jamie, did you notice if my Tennessee guys got on to this afternoon when you all logged on?